Welcome from Indianapolis. I am Derwin Smiley, and this is the Derwin Smiley Show. Miss Billie Green is the author of the book entitled Troubled Women, God Cares When You Are Hurting. Miss Green, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Can you tell me what made you want to write a book titled like this, Troubled Women, God Cares When You Are Hurting?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of women out there are hurting and they're looking for answers and they don't know who to turn to. This book is pertaining to outreach ministry for women that are looking for answers today. You know, many women are troubled in their home. They have difficult time in raising their children, and they even have their loved ones, and even a husband may be abandoned that may have even walked out on a bad relationship. And a lot of times, too, these women goes into a great depressions, and they're looking for an answer to a comforter. And that gave me the inspiration to write my new book, Troubled Women, God Cares When You Are Hurting.
So let's go through a little bit of the book. So what is the main thing you want people to get out of your book?
The main thing I want women to get out of is faith, having faith. We look back over 2,000 years ago in the biblical time where Esther, you know, she almost lost her life to save a nation. And because of faith, she was inspired, you know, by God, you know, to free her country. We look at Hannah, how she was barren and she went to the mountains and she cried and she prayed for a man child. These women that were great women today, we can apply that same faith and be overcomer also. So
faith also, how important is prayer?
Prayer is the number one key. It's very important. It's the answer to our success, to our comforter. Doctors even say 70 to 90% of prayer prevailing much before surgery that comes out successful. So prayer is a power that we must always apply in our life. If we look at Jesus Christ when he died and before he was crucified, he went to the tree of Gethsemane and he bowed down to pray and he asked God for strength to go through that test. So we must apply that same faith in prayer today.
Was there any other individuals who, I know you probably went through because you had to have some knowledge of this to write a book like this, who were important in your life when you was going through your trials and tribulations?
Who was most dearly important in my life was my mom and my dad. They were a great inspiration. You know, they came to the Lord over 25 years ago. I watched them for a number of time, and I seen their life. They gave me the inspiration, you know, to move on, to be motivated, to stay closer to the Lord. And I wanted to reach out to women that are truly wounded today. We live in an economic time now where we need answer. We need a comforter now. And I had a great trials and tribulation in my life, you know, that God had really seen me through a great challenge, raising my kids, you know, being in a marriage that wasn't really a great success, you know. So it's a challenge in anything that we do out here, that we must put God first and we must apply prayer and we must continue to seek the seed of faith. It's like a seed. Faith is like a seed that constantly grows. If you nurture and water that seed, it's going to grow. It's going to bring forth fruit. So in my book, it's going to bring forth a birth, a ministry to help women. There's women today don't even know who God is. They don't even know how much God cares. He cares about the depths of our soul, the pain. You know, you can have money and riches and still be hurting.
So how did you get past the pain when you felt, I know you, because you're human and not divine, I know you had those days where you were looking for God. God, are you here? Are you here? How did you get through those times?
Waiting, patient. I've seen a great results where God just opened the windows of heaven for me, not in a richy way, but just in peace, encounter me with joy to continue to press on. And the first part of pressing is having a foundation, having a great church home. That's the first foundation that where you can get strength. Without the body, you know, it's really hard to be an overcomer because that's where our strength comes, is unity. Jesus Christ prayed with the apostle for unity, and he said he will always be with us even unto the end of the time.
So talk about how closely knit is your immediate family. I think you have some children, and how were they affected? How did you deal with them going through your hard times?
Well, it was really a challenge though, and because I kept them in the admonition of God's word and grace, it was a challenge, but because I knew who God was, he gave me the strength to be able to raise my children in respectable, knowing the Lord. You know, if you train up a child in a way that he or she will go, they will not depart.
She is Miss Billie Green, the author of Troubled Women, God Cares When You Are Hurting. Miss Green, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. God bless you, Elder Smiley.
Stacey.
Mm-hmm.
It's our thought that by training these providers, more likely they will be a big part in bringing in more patients from minority populations to participate.
One size fits all used to be the way we develop new drugs. It's no longer the case. And so it's very important in a multicultural, multi-ethnic society that we have clinical trials where all groups of people participate.
Miss Benita Tyler is the author of Addicted to Dysfunction. Miss Benita, Miss Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor. I want to focus on these two words, addicted to dysfunction. What does addicted mean to you?
Well, to me, addicted means, living your life where you are having some problem areas and you just need to find a way to get out of that. And a lot of times when we talk about addiction, a lot of people relate that to maybe alcoholism or being on drugs or something like that. But I think that there's lots of different types of addictions, and I talk about those in the book.
What does the word dysfunction mean?
Oh, dysfunction, that is huge. And I think that we all have a lot of dysfunction in our life as well. Dysfunction is, not being able to have good coping skills, having some problems in your life and not having the solutions to.
Before we jump into, you see I have the book marked.
Yes.
So there's certain chapters that I want to pull out and talk about, but I want to start at the end.
Okay.
What are some survival skills, or how did you make it through, or some solutions to get where you are today?
I think a big part of how I was able to make it out, so to speak, is to be honest with myself, to really pinpoint those areas that I was having problems with in my life, and to be able to admit that I had problems, because that's often hard for us to do. And also my relationship with God was really the crutch of the whole thing, of getting me through.
Okay, let's tell me a little bit about yourself. Who is Ms. Benita Tyler?
Benita Tyler is someone who is very diverse, very friendly, very outgoing, a very positive person. I like to take my life to edify and motivate others. And I also am a lifelong learner, and now I've taken on writing, and so I'm very excited about that. And I'm also a mother and a wife.
When individuals come out with books like this, it blows my mind, because I think you said earlier, being honest with yourself. What made you want to be that honest where you could put all your information out there?
Well, it got to a point, Derwin, where I turned 50 years old, and I was at a place in my life where I needed to do something different. I kept repeating the same behaviors, and I just didn't know where to turn. I was very depressed and just needed an outlet, and this book was something that gave me a vehicle to release some of my pain.
Okay, so it was very therapeutic.
Absolutely,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's jump into some of the chapters. one of the chapters I have is chapter 2, disappointment, what a father brings. Pretty much I had it tagged as your mother's life with your grandfather or her father. Let's talk a little bit about chapter 2.
Okay. Well, I think disappointment goes all the way back to birth, as far as when females are talking about the men in their life, as far as their father figures. And sometimes it is generational. Like my mother had a father who wasn't there for her. He was kind of there, but he kind of threw her and her brothers off with the grandparents. And so, she, didn't have a father. And so, of course, when she married, my father was absent as well. And I think that for women, it's very important to have a father in your life, because when you don't, there's some emptiness and some things that go along with that.
Talk about how important, how strong your mother was, because I think in the book, in chapter 2, you talked about how her maternal skills came out by taking care of her younger siblings.
And I think that my mother was so strong because she didn't really have a choice. Her mother died when she was 2 years old, and again, like I said, her father was unavailable and emotionally unavailable, physically unavailable, and so she was left to take care of her 2 younger brothers, and she had to try to do that, being bounced around from relatives' houses and grandparents and things like that. So when she had me and my sister, she already knew how to take care. She already had that, even though she didn't have a mother to show her that maternal way, taking care of her brothers was something that provided her with that, and which made her a very strong and good mother for us, even though she was a single parent.
Did you ever see those days when your mother felt like giving up? Do you think you ever saw that in her, that she was just going to give up sometime?
No, I never saw that. She really had a lot of tenacity. She did have one point in her life where she did have a pretty bad breakdown, but it was never relevant to us. It was always behind the scenes, so we never really saw that. She always demonstrated a very positive and upbeat nature. She was never like a complainer or anything like that, so it was never really relevant to us what was going on.
So how important was that to you?
I think that that's very important, because she taught us not to go through life having a pity party, to work hard, to be strong. I think that sometimes one part that was missing is that sometimes when you continue to keep trudging along, being strong, and you're kind of dying on the inside, you do need to be able to admit that and take a step back and ask for help. And so I think that that's one thing that maybe hampered me, because I've always felt like I had to just be strong and just keep going and going and going.
So how do you think when a female has to be that strong, do you think she began to cut people off or just get into her own self and live in a cocoon, so to speak?
I kind of think so, because even now I'm kind of like that too. I'm, very friendly and outgoing, but once I go home, I just don't want people knocking on my door. I don't want people bothering me. And she was that way too. We never really had a lot of neighbors coming over and things like that, so I think you do kind of go inward and you just do what you have to do to survive.
I have to take a commercial break at this time, but stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We will continue our conversation with Ms. Benita Tyler, the author of Addicted to Dysfunction. Ms. Benita, I hope we'll have enough time to do justice to this, but there's just so much in here, and I'm gonna try to hit as many chapters as possible. You do have like 37 to 38 chapters in this
Right.
book, so I'm just want to touch on some. So chapter 3 says, choices, a boyfriend, generosity, and combined chapter 5 also, choices, a boyfriend from a bad place, so to speak. But the person name we're talking about is a Mr. John.
Right.
Share that with me.
Well, Mr. John was a boyfriend that my mother had, and the reason why I named that chapter Choices, I think because a lot of times women don't take time to make the best choice. A lot of times, because a man can provide for us a lot of material things, as John could. I mean, when he met my mother, we were living renting a house, and again, she was a single parent, and what he brought to the table was a very hard worker, somebody who could provide her, with a brand new house and give her the cars and luxuries and all the things of that nature, which was good. But on the flip side, he was very controlling and very jealous. And that wasn't a good thing. And the thing that I really praise my mother about is that she was able to leave that relationship. She had to make a plan, which a lot of times we don't, ladies don't take a time to make a plan. But she made a plan. He was going out of town to go visit his mother, who lived in Arkansas. And when he left, she was like, oh, great, yeah, go see your mother, and when he left, she packed us up and she moved, and she was very humble, had to move us to some apartments that, were nothing like, the middle-class life that he had provided for us. And at the time, I was very angry with her. I thought, wow, we're getting ready to move in these apartments, they had roaches, there were a lot of problems. I had to move into a room with my sister and, give up my bedroom and stuff. So, I'm thinking, wow, what's wrong with her? Why is she leaving this man? Until he came looking for us. And the next thing I know, he was waving a gun in my direction as he was coming to the apartment complex that we moved in, looking for my mother. And he was so desperate trying to find her that, even I was in harm's way. And so I had to run fast as I could to get away from him, to go let my mother know that he was coming after her.
How long did it take for your mother to finally decide enough is enough?
Well, she was in this relationship, I want to say, for at least 4 or 5 years. So, it took a while, because, in talking to her about it after I wrote this book, she, revealed to me that, each time that she wanted to leave him, he would come back, as most men do, and say, I'm sorry, this won't never happen again. And one good thing about her, too, is that he asked her to marry him repeatedly, and she said no. And so I praise her for that. So the reason why I decided to make the lesson about choices is because just because a man can offer you material things does not mean that he's a good choice, and we have to make the time to make great choices in men.
Something that stands out, as you said, the tenacity that your mother had and everything. I think something you said is that she made a plan. How important is that a individual who is in a bad situation make a plan of escape?
You really have to take the time to make a plan, because when you're dealing with men who are controlling and really jealous like that, you can really get hurt. So you have to take the time to either go to a shelter, let somebody know that you're in trouble, a trusted friend or something like that. But you have to make a plan so that you can protect yourself, so that you don't put yourself in harm's way.
So how long you think he was planning this plan?
I think that my mother started planning this plan probably in year 1, and she was actually became suicidal and ended up in the hospital, almost, overdosed on some pills behind him. And I think that was the turning point for her, that she knew that she had to get away from him.
Why do you think it had to go that far?
I think sometimes, women just feel like there's no way out. They don't have a support system, which she didn't, and, that she didn't know what else to do. And, me and my sister would have been the victims of her if she took her life, because we didn't have anyone to care for us. But it's really a shame that it did get that far, because she did have children to care for.
So after that situation, I know, after being in the hospital and everything, did you look at your mother any differently?
Well, I was only 12 years old, so I really didn't know what was going on. I really didn't know what suicide really meant. But surprisingly, her act of suicide ended up being something that was a seed that transferred into me and my sister. We were suicidal during some times in our lives, and I think that when your maternal figure shows you something like that, even though you're young and you really don't know what's going on, because you see them do it, and that's the way that they cope, it kind of comes into your spirit, and it's something that you think that's a coping mechanism, which is so false.
I know we have to go to another break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the cycle that you started, what you started to experience from seeing what your mother went through. She is Miss Benita Tyler. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We will now continue our conversation with Miss Benita Tyler, the author of Addicted to Dysfunction. Now I want to jump into your life. We talked about your mother now. There's some dysfunction that you went through also. Let's start with chapter 11, awareness, warning, marriage can be hard. Antoine, your first marriage.
Okay. And marriage can be hard. And the reason why I entitled that chapter, Marriage Can Be Hard, is because when I was 21 years old, I met my first husband. He was 19. Well, when I first met him, I'm like, 2 years age difference? Red flag, but I just kept right on going. But the reason why that was is because I didn't have any brothers, I didn't have a father, and so when I met my husband, he was really like showing me all the attention that I wanted, saying all the right things. And I really wanted a male in my life, and so he was the first male that actually came into my life and paid a lot of attention to me. Well, with that attention came a lot of problems, and I think the reason why we had problems, really the majority of them, was because of the age on both of our accounts. But surprisingly, I was the one who pushed for getting married, okay? And so you kind of get what you ask for, right?
Yes.
And so one day we were just sitting in the living room, and I said, hey, I want to call the justice of the peace over. And he just kind of rolled with it. So we ended up getting married, and after we got married, we had a lot of problems. And a lot of it, we were homeless at times. You know, he had a lot of dysfunction in his own life because his grandparents raised him, and his mom and dad were emotionally unavailable to him as well. So when you're trying to put his dysfunction together with my dysfunction, it was just really a mess. And out of that, we had a couple of kids, and he ended up being murdered. And on the streets of Harlem, you know, him and his friends were kind of like in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you know, that ended up happening, but a lot of it was, I'll say, contributed to the lifestyle that he led. Not that he was a bad person or anything.
How did you get over that or get through that?
Well, again, there was really no time to grieve, because at the time when he did pass away, there was no life insurance or anything like that. I didn't have very many resources. Only thing I had was a car, so I just had to focus on trying to get this car sold so I could even bury him. So it was really tough. And then I had the 3 kids, had twins and another child, 2 and 4. So all I could do was just keep pushing, trying to bury my husband, trying to take care of my kids. So it was really a difficult time, but I didn't have time to breathe. All I could do was just keep doing what I needed to do.
Where do you think you got that strength from?
My mother, absolutely, yes.
So you think every day just seeing her, she just instilled in you to never give up, never say die. I can see that's getting emotional right now, but just thinking back, do you ever stop to think, if I could do it all over again, what would be different?
I think that if I could do it all over again, I would have the awareness to make better choices when it came to the men in my life.
So what, I know you have daughters, so what have you instilled into them about waiting, getting to know an individual before you make that big leap out there to give somebody your whole heart at a young age? Because you know, nowadays, you see it all the time in the newspaper, on the TV show, young females being abused by males. So what have you instilled into your daughters to know the warning signs not to do?
I think I've done a pretty good job. I have a 25-year-old daughter and also a 16-year-old daughter. The 25-year-old does not want to get married because of the mess that she sees, you know, friends going through and things. And, you know, she's read my book, and to her surprise, she's like, wow, Mom, really? You know? So I think she learned a lot of lessons from the book, and we have a very open conversation, so we're always talking about red flags and things to watch out for. and things of that nature. And the 16-year-old, you know, she doesn't have any boyfriend. She's waiting as well. So I'm very proud of them. I think that I've done a good job.
Now I want to move into your second marriage, Mr. Dion.
Yes.
Talk about him.
Okay. With the Dion marriage, it's been a good marriage. We've been actually married for 20 years. And I think that the most problems that we had, the majority of the stress and things that came to our marriage were outside forces. Okay, because when I married him, we were both on our second marriage. He had kids, I had kids, and then we tried to merge our families together because, you know, his two sons did not have a caretaker at the time. Their mother was having a lot of problems and stuff, so we brought these children into our house and tried to have a blended family. And we had a lot of opposition come against us because of dysfunction. You know, their mother and their mother's family were codependent, so they didn't understand, you know, boundaries and things like that, and so they imposed a lot of hardships on us as we were trying to raise these children collectively as one, and that was really, really hard. And, you know, we went through a lot of jealousy and between the kids sometimes, and just a lot of pushback from people, because a lot of people, you know, felt like, you know, why are we withholding children from somebody who was an addict? And, you know, you just have to be strong, and in our strongness there was weakness, because it did put some cracks in the marriage.
With a little bit of time, I think I have like a minute and a half.
Okay.
I want to speed up right through this. Talk about the incident with the cell phone.
Well, my stepson had asked if he could get a different cell phone. He wanted to like switch it over or whatever. And at the time, you know, he was having some behavioral issues, and so I did not want to do that. But he decided he was going to take it in his own hands and do it anyway. And so he kept calling the carrier, trying to switch the phone over, and when it didn't work, he'd go ask my husband or go ask my sister even for my social security number so he could do it on his own and stuff. And when I confronted him about it, you know, because he was used to having disrespect with his mom, he tried it on me, and so it wasn't a good thing, because, you know, there was a lot of pushback from me, because, you know, I try to be very stern and have my children be very respectful and stuff, and so it wasn't a good situation.
So how important was it for you and your husband to come together as one, to say, we're going to get through this, but we have to be together to stand at one against the world?
Very important. I think very key. And I think that, you know, at times, you know, there was a few times that when we did not do that. And I think that we had to learn, because a lot of problems later on came in our own marriage, and we had to rebound back from that. And all of it resulted from, you know, not being, you know, united at times.
She is Miss Benita Tyler, the author of Addicted to Dysfunction. And remember, I thank you for tuning into the Derwin Smiley Show this evening, and you can follow us on the World Wide Web at thederwinsmileyshow.com. And remember, my sole purpose is to inspire the greatness in you. I'll see you next time.